What the hell is wrong with you? The only thing that's ever been consistent in my life is that question. Welcome to the ADHD Untangled podcast. My name is Rosie Turner and I'm an accredited ADHD coach, yoga and Pilates instructor. But ultimately, I'm just a human being who knows what it feels like to live with ADHD. And after having 8 failed driving tests, impulsive decisions to get married and then divorce before the age of 27, and having an inability to handle any form of rejection, I've decided to dedicate my life to supporting the ADHD community. And this podcast will cover the 2 things that I love to talk about most: movement and ADHD. You will hear real life stories from real people living with ADHD. You will get advice from wellness industry and ADHD experts. So what are you waiting for? Let's get untangled and show the world what we are made of. So if you want to start by just telling everyone who the hell you are and what's your life's mission at the moment.
My God. Okay. So I am Kate Moryouseff. I've got lots of alter egos, but I would say that I'm the host of the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast. I'm a wellbeing coach. I'm an EFT practitioner. I've just written a new book, my first book, which is the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Toolkit, which I can just give a little plug here, which is here. We were just saying is like absolutely crazy that the thought of like the fact that I've written a book. And I got probably the most important job is the fact that I'm a mum and I've got 4 kids. And that's the top of my lots of my priorities are my kids and my family. And then, everything else, and supporting this community of late diagnosed neurodivergent women and girls and people, and just making sure that we are trying to get the awareness out there, the education, the most up-to-date insights through all the conversations that we are having. And, Rosie and I have been together doing this for a little while, and so it's really exciting to be here. So thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. And this is your second time on the podcast, and you have been a huge inspiration to me and so many women out there in this community. You're doing such amazing things, and it just brings me so much joy to see you there with your book, because everyone listening probably relates to how difficult that even sounds to write a book with ADHD and all of those hats that you're wearing on top, like being a mum. I don't even know how you do all the things you do and be a mum. I just don't.
Yeah. You have to be so careful, because I don't want anyone to think any of this has been easy. It's not been effortless. It's not been, it's been a million bumpy roads. There's been obstacles. There's been huge self-limiting blocks, things I've had to get over, mindset shifts I'm still working on now. I don't want anyone to think like, oh my God, what's wrong with me if I've not managed to achieve any of this, because the driving force has always been, I needed that help at the very beginning and it wasn't there. And I relate to so many women and resonate with so many women who are like me, sort of like 5 years ago, and they're finding out now, and they're understanding like all the interconnections of their hormones and their, life challenges and their mental health problems that they've sort of had to just deal with, and all the hormonal and the women's health issues, and just like this melting pot of stuff, like whether it's to do with relationships, career, addiction, just so much chaos that they've thought was all because of them. They've put so much blame on themselves, and lack of consistency and rebranding themselves and new chapters and all of this. And so this is what I want people to know, is that, yes, I've done all of this, but none of it has been easy. But there's just been this force that has kept me going. And I know it's the podcast because I love asking questions and being curious and learning, and I'm learning. And the good thing is when I learn, I can share this information. And that's what's kept me going, is knowing that whatever I'm learning, I can then be like, right, I can siphon this off into the podcast and more people can, have awareness as well. So if anyone's listening right now and thinking, oh my God, like, yes, it's been overwhelming. Yes, it's been hard, but it is doable with lots and lots and lots of support and self-compassion.
It's just like music to my ears, because this is what I love about your approach so much, is that you are so authentic and honest about everything you go through. You share everything, like how you're feeling and the struggles that you face behind what we see. Like, because obviously on the outskirts, it's so easy, isn't it, to see what everyone's up to. And we all go through those stages, I think, where it's like really hard not to look outwards. And, you know, if you're going through a low period or a period where you've had to pull back and you start to compare yourself and think you're not doing enough, it's so refreshing to see women like you in the community who just express exactly the reality of what you're going through in the background. And I think that's so important. As we were just talking before we, you know, recorded, was that we are in this sort of, I think, stage with, you know, women going out there, going to the extremes of what we can achieve with this, you know, new way of living. And it's important to, you know, protect our energy and not believe that we are super human all the time, and that we've got to just keep hustling, you know, that hustle culture type thing. Um, what would you say, you know, you said about imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs through writing the book. How did you navigate that? What were some of the tools that you used, and what helped you overcome and not, you know, stay in that freeze mode, which we can all, again, relate to, in that procrastination at times when it gets too much?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think what's helped is the fact that this book, again, is there's been this need to get the information out there. And I think the only way I operate is sharing my own story and sharing my vulnerabilities and difficulties and challenges, because that's how I connect to other people. Like, I don't connect to those people online who are everything's shiny, everything's easy. Just do this and you'll be earning 7 figures, or just do this and you'll be a picture of health in 6 weeks. Like, that is not, I actively, like, my body, like, reacts to that. And so I kind of think, well, I need to show up what I value as well. And that is sharing the struggles, sharing the challenges. What helps me is like small, manageable, sustainable tweaks and micro changes and mindset shifts, because I feel like I've been climbing this ladder with like a gazillion rungs and I'm just taking these little tiny steps. Like, there's not been one giant leap that's got me over the edge. Like, it just hasn't. And I guess with the book, I've always enjoyed writing and I've always wanted to write a book. Like, this weird thing inside of me is just like, I'd love to write a book. And that's just always been there, way before my ADHD diagnosis, way before the podcast. And so I guess that was something that was a little bit of a navigation system for me. Was, okay, so I've got the podcast, I've learnt loads, I'd love to share it more. And then I just started very gently, started listening to podcasts about writing a book, listening to podcasts about finding an agent, very, very gently doing little things. Over like 2 years, I was just kind of listening and watching and trying and connecting. It's through that. It's never through that one huge moment, you know, like you see it in the films of like, you bump into someone and then your life changes. And maybe there are these sliding door moments for sure. But for me, it has just been getting up every morning, trying to do the best I can with the resources that I've got, the energy levels, whatever's going on, the stresses that is going on. Some weeks have been really kind of productive, and then other weeks it's just like 10 steps back. And it feels weirdly that while I was writing the book, I felt like I was going backwards, because I guess I couldn't push my business forwards. I only had a finite amount of time. And this is what we need to talk about, is that we only have as much time in the day that we can to dedicate to our family, our business, our partner, our friends, our self-care. And we've been sold this story that we just have to push, 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 and everything has to be perfect and everyone has to get equal amounts of us. And it's just not true. Like, sometimes our career has to take over. Sometimes our kids have to take over. Sometimes our partner, we like have to give everything to our partner or our parents, and certain things take a back seat, and life never is perfect in one capacity. So when we suddenly realize that we give ourselves this permission to maybe take our foot off the accelerator, the pedal, and just know that it's okay to exist in a place where certain things are moving and certain things aren't, or certain things are going backwards, or we get time to recalibrate, and maybe certain things we don't want anymore, like people, boundaries, things change. Um, and that's okay. And I think maybe with ADHD and our business, and we try so hard, we push so hard, and then something just sits in our body and we go, you know what, that just doesn't feel right anymore. And we have to maybe make changes, and we put blame on ourselves for that. But yeah, I think being able to be told that, when I was told it's okay for things to not always be perfect and going well and thriving and being abundant in certain capacities, like that's okay. That's okay. And life just keeps going, and we just try and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Things work, sometimes things don't work. And you know, I don't know. That's what I'm kind of coming to a bit of a realization about. It's taking that pressure off, literally removing the pressure we put on ourselves. It's very often us putting the pressure on ourselves, not so much externally. We just
100%.
so much and put it on our shoulders, and we think we have to carry everything for everyone, and it's just not sustainable.
No, it's so much that you said there that just makes so much sense. And I think the first thing is you've got this deeper why to, when we've got a deeper why, I believe, especially with ADHD, we can sort of overcome some of these things that we might view as struggles. So like procrastination or, having consistency, where, that word consistency that we often go about, and reaching our potential. But also what I think you've highlighted is what's quite dangerous, I think, about that sometimes is it's great to have your deeper why and have a mission and a power, that force to continue. But because we are how we are and we're so passionate, when we have found that why,
Mm.
we can go to the extreme and want to spin all the plates and expect, like you say, to be writing a book, but simultaneously still your one-man band business to be thriving at the same time, and you to be a mom and to look after yourself and stay alive, basically. And it is impossible, but sometimes with ADHD, I think we can do the impossible all the time and be running at a certain speed. And I always say, like, we can do a lot, but we can't do it all the time. And I think that's so great. And what you said there was about, I always say when you simultaneously say yes to something, we're simultaneously saying no to something else, and vice versa. So it seems like you was able to prioritize that and have some acceptance in this. If I want to do this book, like at that time, then I'm gonna have to start accepting that something's gonna have to, hold back a little
Yeah.
bit.
Hindsight's a beautiful thing. Like, I'm not going to lie and say that was done in the moment, but there were times where I'd look back and think, yeah, I probably shouldn't have taken that on or done that. Maybe I should have taken a break from the podcast. Maybe I should pull back from coaching. Like I did, I pulled back from one-to-one coaching for quite a long time while I was doing the book. I did more like group coaching. Should I pull back from the podcast a little bit more? Probably. Like I look back and I think, oh my God, I was really pushing myself to the absolute limit. And writing a book with publisher and editors and deadlines is great because you get all that support. But on the flip side, they'll be like, we need it by this date. And then you kind of look at your diary and you think, oh my God, like what's here? Like, how do I do it?
Yeah, there's no talking yourself out of it then.
Yeah, like my weekend went out the window, my socializing went out the window. And then I started that RSD would kick in of, why is no one calling me? Or like, why have I not been out? Or why is no one making social plans with me? And it's because I pulled back. And obviously we know what it's like. We pull back, eventually people make plans with other people and people don't invite you because you're always saying no. But that RSD side of me was like, oh, I've got no more friends left. Like, what have I done? So I made a really special effort that once I handed the book in, I actually like went back and was like connecting with my friends and trying to make lots of social plans, and realizing that connection with my friends I'd missed so much, like those walks, dinner plans, all these things, like weekend plans. And I just thought, oh, that's what I had to give up. And that was hard. So yeah, it's not, we can't have it all. And it's really important that people know that. So
Yeah.
we can't run these businesses and write books and do podcasts and do all the stuff that we want and have this like really meaningful family life and relationship and loads of friends, because we only have these 24 hours in a day. And for me, I was always trying to prioritize sleep. My diary is literally like my most sacred thing, that I have to have buffers. So even during my busiest times, I don't do back-to-back meetings unless it's very, very like urgent. Um, Really, I just try so hard. I look at my diary and I kind of, I don't relate to sort of like too many autistic traits, but I see my diary kind of like a jigsaw. And I see things slotting into place, and time when I walk the dog, and time when I need to have a coffee or a cup of tea or just decompress, and I see it all slotting into place like grids. And if that doesn't feel good in my body, I'm like, oh my God, right, who can I cancel? Where can I reschedule? Like, what have I done? And that is my burnout prevention, like 101, is checking my diary every week and realizing. And being ADHD, what I'll realize is I put a something in my diary and just not spotted that I've got something like an hour later. So then I have to go back and I have to be like rescheduled, and it's like a whole big hoo-ha, but it has to be done, because otherwise I'm in burnout straight away. So it's exhausting, but it is such a priority to make sure that I'm not backing myself up diary wise and work wise and scheduling wise, because that, I know my nervous system just goes boom, like straight into sort of like severe sympathetic mode.
Oh, this is so relatable. And I love that you're, relating it to the nervous system, because it is, if it doesn't feel good, that feeling when you look in your diary and you've got ADHD or even autism and you feel like you've got no space, there is nothing more overwhelming or to send you into a spiral than seeing a jam-packed diary when you're about to, oh my God. And it's awful. And I often think that reaction is so amazing to hear you talk about this, because my reaction sometimes to that is it feels so extreme,
Like
like emotional,
the
and like, like complete shutdown, basically, that after I feel a lot of shame around it. But it's so amazing to hear you talk about that as well. And the fact that everyone, again, it's another thing that we don't talk about a lot, but it's normal and it's okay to pull back and cancel things if
yeah.
you need to.
And you know what? And I love working in this space. Like, most of my guests are neurodivergent. Most of the people I work with, like, thankfully, I'm in this very lovely echo chamber of just everyone getting each other. And
Yeah.
I've had times where guests have messaged me going, I've overcommitted, I'm feeling really burnt out. Can we push our interview for another 2 months? And I have to say, I'm always like, yes, because
Yeah.
it gives me like,
That feeling was always cancelled.
yeah. So, and so, I never mind too much, because I always probably think, if I can, I mean, I won't cancel anyone too last minute, but if I give someone a few days notice or a week or whatever, I know that I'm probably doing them a favor as well, because they've probably overcommitted in some capacity. So yeah, I think just having that awareness around that, and being okay to talk about it and admit it, and you know normalize it a little bit, that we are in this, like you say, this hustle culture of cramming as much as we can, in a day. Sometimes I'll say to someone, say if I'm I don't know, if there's like some form of like development meeting, or a new, something that doesn't involve being on Zoom, I'll just be like, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to put you in my AirPods and I'm going to walk the dog at the same time, and I'm going to walk
Yeah.
and talk. And that works really well. It's just the back-to-back being online meetings that just totally frazzle me, and I can't do at all.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's very overstimulating. And I've started to do that with some of my clients when it's been nice. I'm like, do you mind if we do like a phone coaching call today? And if they've been long-standing clients, and they love it. The sessions have been actually better than the ones when we've sat down. So it's so, again, like you say, lucky enough to be working in a community that understands it. It really takes away that pressure of what would have been more draining when we're overthinking, oh, what am I going to say to them? Actually, oh, what if they think this? What if they think that? Like, already we're saving so much energy and preventing burnout by not having to worry about RSD and what this person's going to think, because everyone gets it. And that's such a privilege. And wouldn't it be lovely, actually, if the world, because I think sometimes we're in our bubble where people really understand all of the stuff. But when we leave the bubble, I forget that, like, God, no, there's still
That's
so
not
much, yeah, it's not acceptable. So it'd be so lovely if we could get to a place in the world where, everyone felt comfortable to just say it how it is and pull
yeah.
back when they needed to.
Totally. I mean, I have this thing where I've recently been in quite a few meetings because of the book, um, like going to like boardroomy meetings, which is totally alien to me now. Like I haven't worked in an office for so long. And I've gone in and there's like either air conditioning blowing, it's very like bright, and my body, and again, like my nervous system reacts in a way, like you go to an airport or something like that, and you just
God,
know
yeah.
it's okay because I'm only going to be here for a few hours, and you kind of just like get through it. But I'm sat in this meeting going, all I can think about is I need the air conditioning off, I need the window open, I need the lights that are, and it's like taking so much of my energy to concentrate and focus on the meeting. And then I have started just saying like, would you mind if we just open the window? And they kind of look at me like, well, we've got air conditioning on. I'm like, I know, but I just need some fresh air. Um, and and it's those little things that kind of, rattle me a little bit. But the minute I can go somewhere and I know that the sensory part of me is placated a little bit, I'm calmer and I'm able to focus. So again, it's just that acknowledgement to someone who is listening and kind of think, why do I feel so tense in these situations? They maybe not haven't even recognized that, like recognize that impact of the
Definitely.
sensory differences and difficulties that they're sort of absorbing in their nervous system, like little changes. And whenever I say, oh, can we have the window open? Is the air condition? Can we turn the aircon off? They go, oh yeah, much prefer the window. That's nice to get some fresh air or whatever. And it's just kind of like fine. So yeah, it's just funny because as time's gone on, I care less what people think. But I recognize that we still live in such a neurotypical environment, working environment of expectations and what is professional and what isn't professional. Whereas I just literally work from my office, work from home, do my thing. The podcast is on my terms, my coaching times on my, everything's on my terms, which I love. But it's hard. It's hard if you're not working like that. It's really hard.
It really is. And I often say, like, that high stat that we see about ADHD and entrepreneurship, I wonder if a lot of that is just because we can't fit in, like you say, even down to the sensory stuff, into these environments. So a lot of people have had to, go and work for themselves and start their own business, which also comes with lots of challenges. But I do think that could be a lot to do with it, right? And I think the sensory thing's so interesting. Like the more you learn and the more you come aware of ADHD and what it means and neurodiversity, like I now can see that there's certain situations that I've been in or places that I could never understand why I wasn't calm or able to focus, or I felt triggered by, I was tapping into old habits and stuff like that. Even down to the calf that I kept trying to work in. I was like, I'm going to go work in a cafe. Everyone says it's really good. But I've realised they've got these giant speakers in this really small space with really loud music. And even with my big headphones on, I can still hear it. So I was like, that explains why I feel very stressed in here.
Like I was noticing, I don't know if I kind of think, oh, is it my age or not? But like if I go to a restaurant and I walk in and I'll know straight away whether I can block out that background noise or not. And then it gets to the point where I'm like, my kids call me a Karen because I kind of just go, you okay? You just turn the music down a little bit. And it's so embarrassing. And I'm just like, I can't sit in this restaurant with the loud music.
So funny. So
Yeah,
you're showing them what it's like to just ask for what it is you need.
yeah. And problem. And then they turn the music down, and then I go, you see, is that not just nicer? There's background music, but it's
Yeah.
just not blasting really loud. So yeah.
It's so true though. And also the experience for them, but they don't obviously, children might not realise, but you're going to be a much nicer mum to be around or company with just that bit
They're
of
gonna
noise turned down.
they're gonna enjoy the experience better as well, because
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe I'm totally like naive, but I don't think there's a huge amount of people that enjoy having a conversation over really loud music in a noisy environment with like plates banging and crockery and people moving and chairs and talking. Like there's just so much stimuli, like output going on, that to have really loud music over all of that, like you'll leave and you're drained and you're exhausted, and going out for dinner is meant to be a really nice sociable thing. And yes, it's okay to feel tired and drained after that, but you kind of want it to be worth its while. Otherwise, there's no point. And I don't want to be a hermit. I want to go out. I want to enjoy
Yeah.
seeing people and going out for dinner and things like that. But it's noticing those little things, like what's that doing? So now I kind of think that restaurant looks really cool and really fun, but maybe that's just not for me. I'm going to go somewhere a bit more chill.
It's off the list.
Yeah. Sadly, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry to interrupt, but I need your help. I've just launched the very first CPD certified ADHD coach training for the sports and wellness industry. So whether you're a yoga teacher, Pilates instructor, or sports coach or therapist, or just somewhere in between, this training has been specifically designed for sports and wellness professionals who want to make a real difference. But why? Because it is proven that movement and meditation is game-changing treatment for individuals with ADHD. So now more than ever, we need professionals just like you who truly understand what it's like to live with ADHD. So we can start to lead the way and create accessible environments for everybody and every mind. So if you're ready to create a career that gives you freedom and also allows you to have a positive impact on the lives of others, then check out our website, untangledco.com, and join our first online training this May. So let's talk about hormones. So as we know, hormones and ADHD is a massive, massive, massive topic. And thankfully, it's one of the topics that we now do have new research on, is to my knowledge. And thanks to you, we are so much more up to date on what is going on. But do you want to tell us a little bit around, because I know there's a lot of information, like you said, that wasn't out there for you with your ADHD. But what I don't actually know is your background story with when it comes to ADHD and hormones, and where did that start, like this struggle to strength, wanting to help others on this journey?
So I basically could never tolerate synthetic hormones. So when it came to, birth control, the contraceptive pill, being a coil, like everything reacted really, really badly with me. And I, to the point where I was just like, within a few months of trying different things, I was like, no, I cannot deal with this. Mood dysregulation and extreme emotions, low mood, like so many different things. And so then I realized, okay, I'm not going to take any form of hormone. However, I would also get really severe sort of PMS. And I don't want to say PMDD for me, because I know what certain women have gone through with PMDD, and there's sort of like suicide ideation and things like that. And it never got as extreme for me, but I would have definitely a good week of my cycle feeling pretty dreadful. My bleeding has always been extremely heavy, fibroids, and I've had to have quite a few procedures to remove cysts and all sorts of things. Postnatally, I would say there was probably a lot of postnatal anxiety as opposed to postnatal depression. So for me, my hormones have always just felt very extreme, always, from like the minute I started having periods, I just felt like they were always in control. Like they weren't just there in the background. Some women, they have that and it's great. For me, it was always, they were kind of like center show. And then as I hit about 40, I definitely noticed what I didn't know then was like perimenopausal symptoms. But because I was 40 and there was a pandemic and I was getting an ADHD diagnosis and the world was kind of like in this Armageddon, I just presumed it was just anxiety and overwhelm and all of that. So I got to about 41 and the very real signs of perimenopause kicked in, where I was just waking up in the night drenched in sweat for 2 weeks of my cycle, the last 2 weeks of my cycle, where it would get progressively worse. I would be dripping, literally dripping in sweat, waking up, having to change my top, really like dysregulated moods, feeling so much more anxious than normal. And I was thinking, okay, all the anxiety, the overthinking, all of that, I kind of could relate to, but it was the sweating. And I knew that was definitely hormones. And so thankfully I went on HRT at 41. And at the time, so I'm now nearly 45, so that's 4 years, nearly 4 years ago, I was like, no one at 41 is on HRT. Like, you're meant to be on HRT in your late 40s. Like, why is no one telling me this? And thankfully, I went to Dr. Emma Ping, who also understood ADHD and hormones very well. She was one of the first people who was really making this quite deep connection between ADHD and hormones in women. And she said, no, you're absolutely not too young to go on HRT. And for me, that was a massive game changer, because I was depleted in hormones. But not only was I depleted in hormones, they were fluctuating and they were extreme. My progesterone was all over the place, my estrogen was low, and just they weren't marrying together very well. So the difference was, I thought it was all estrogen. And for a while, I was talking only about estrogen to my community, my audience. And I almost kind of added to this myth of progesterone is we were all progesterone sensitive, and ADHD women especially are very sensitive to progesterone. And thankfully, I have now learned over the past few years that actually what we're sensitive to is this synthetic progestin, which is very different to the body identical progesterone. So what this synthetic progestin is what we find in our contraceptives, in the Mirena coil. Anything that we've been taking as women, that we've just been given, by our GP, here's the contraceptive pill, take that, it's progesterone only, or it's a combi pill, or it's this or that, and we don't really ask what's in it, and we take it, and great if we don't want to get pregnant, potentially great if we need some form of like hormonal regulation, and for many women that works. However, for many, many neurodivergent women, we have had extreme reactions to these synthetic progestins, and we have believed that we are progesterone sensitive, where actually many of us need this body identical progesterone, and we need it in quite high quantities. And I've learned a lot from Adele Winsett, who is incredible and so knowledgeable in this area. We've done quite a lot of workshops together. She just came on a workshop of mine yesterday talking about ADHD and hormones. So what she is learning, and it's very sort of groundbreaking, and unfortunately not hugely research backed, because we don't have a huge amount of research about hormones in neurodivergent women yet. But we are recognizing that the body identical progesterone is mood regulating. It calms our anxiety. It brings it up, gives more GABA, sort of increases the GABA in our body. It helps regulate our nervous system. It helps with sleep. It helps with breast health, with bone health, with gut health. I've always struggled with IBS and constipation. And without getting too graphic, my gut has been so much better since I've been taking progesterone. And yes, the estrogen is great, 100%, but we don't want to be pumping the estrogen up. We want to be creating a bit of an equilibrium between this dance between estrogen and progesterone. We don't want one too high and one too low. We just want a gentle dance, so there's not these extreme fluctuations. Now, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a hormone expert, but I do feel that I can educate more women to go and advocate for themselves, or go and do more research into this area. And I know that Adele learns from a doctor in America, and I'm just going to get her name up because she's done quite a bit of research, and her name is Dr. Carol Peterson. And Carol Peterson has, whether she's a doctor or not, I'm not sure, but she's definitely a hormone specialist. So I think she is a doctor. And she really works in this field of understanding the importance of progesterone for calming this side of us. And my sleep is so much better. And I was really nervous to do this. We started a protocol where it was actually vaginal. I wasn't taking it as a pill, because I was so terrified of how I was going to react to it. And we did this very gentle sort of like increase of the progesterone. And now I'm taking it every single day throughout my cycle, 200 milligrams. And for me, that's working. And a lot of women are terrified of progesterone, and it's because they're terrified of the synthetic progestin. and not the body identical progesterone. So I think it's really important that women can make more of a consensual kind of like, okay, you know what, I'm going to look into this. I'm going to choose. I'm going to ask my doctor. I know that a lot of women also, it's not that hugely available, unfortunately, especially here in the UK, but in other countries, they use progesterone, body identical progesterone cream. So you can use it kind of like how we're using estrogel, like we put it on our skin. So yeah, we're getting new options now. So I felt like that was really important for me to explain because it's just not out there in the public domain.
No, I'm so glad that you mentioned this because, again, this is how I only learnt this from you and Adele on your podcast. And it makes me really get tearful sometimes because I just think back to all the years, like, you know, even myself. And also I'm working with a lot of teenagers now, which, you know, is something I always wanted to do. And I can just see that so much of what they're struggling with is because of their hormones. And, you know, whether it's in the school system or at home, and even that, you know, the way their mental health is coming across. So I just think this is such game changing information because what Adele describes it as, isn't it, is like that's like the Zen chick of hormones. And if you think about someone with ADHD, where we can be quite, you know, high in, I suppose, estrogen. I don't know if that's what it is, but we can be more the party chick and a bit more anxious and, you know, always doing. Whereas if we could get this progesterone, you know, levels correct, like what you have, then we could see us be a lot calmer and hopefully, you know, helping us with that anxiety that a lot of us
Yeah, I
are
mean, I think
seeing.
I hope it's going to be a game changer in women's health. And that is going to be women's sort of brain health, mental health, is not necessarily prescribing, you know, anti-anxiety or antidepressants, is recognizing that women's hormones need helping and supplements
Yeah.
more naturally. So you don't have to wait for perimenopause to kick in for you to be able to start taking this body identical progesterone. You know, there's women and teenagers I know who are suffering cyclically, um, every month with, you know, PMS, PMDD, heavy painful periods, that progesterone probably could help, you know, progesterone cream. And I've spoken to Adele about this. I said, well, why? Like, surely it's going to be so much cheaper and safer to prescribe something like this, where, you know, you just put some progesterone cream on your skin and that could help, you know, with anxiety, with sleep, with overthinking, with this sort of very jittery part of our ADHD. And we don't have to go on pharmaceuticals.
No.
So, well, what's like what's happened? And she said, unfortunately, we're living in this very like this hangover of this patriarchal system. We're probably still in it. It's probably not even a hangover yet.
No.
Of big pharma, you know, unfortunately oiling the palms of the medical system, um, not doing enough research, not doing, you know, there's not enough evidence out there. And again, we know with Western medicine, everything is evidence-based. We know that the private menopause prescribers and doctors are allowed to prescribe different things for our hormonal health now that the NHS can't. And so I think we're going to see this growth now in um, this sort of private side of hormonal treatment, helping women who, you know, maybe haven't hit perimenopause yet, who are in their early 30s, and maybe the hormones have been fluctuating and are beginning to fluctuate. And we're going to find ways to help them with their anxiety and their mood regulation that doesn't involve having to take strong medication with lots of side effects, because hormonal health hasn't been supported, women's health hasn't been supported. You know, if you think historically back about like women maybe in your family, the generations before, where we'd see women in their midlife fall apart, and, you know, typically we call them, you know, mental breakdowns and nervous breakdowns, and it had this terrible connotation of women just like hitting this kind of menopausal moment in their life and they just can't cope, and they, you know, become addicted to drink or to, you know, painkillers and all sorts of dreadful things. And actually what could have supported them is hormones. And we just don't know enough, or there hasn't been enough interest or money, or, like I say, the big pharma is just so controlling with wanting to push that type of medication. But I really believe that the more holistic side, and it's not just hormones, like we have to look at our lifestyle, we have to look at like everything to help improve our well-being. And this productivity hustle culture of doing is not good for our hormones. It's not good for our adrenals, for our thyroid health, um, gut health. Like, it's all interconnected, and we need to start recognizing, like, is it all worth it? Like, is this all worth it? Um, because something has to give, and very often it's our health always that gives.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you add, like, again, what we was talking about at the beginning is you add this new culture, like you said, and then on top of it, hormones now compared to the shift that we must see. Like, I think a lot, I told you my estrogen's been low for a long time. And I think, well, they don't know because they keep saying they're Googling when I go to the GP. So I'm sort of telling them, but I think it is a lot to do with stress related and how I've lived my life for the last 3 years, being quite in masculine energy, I suppose, like, being on my own and running a business and doing all this stuff. I suppose then we're going to get more reactions, I suppose, when we go through these changes, it's going to be more extreme than it ever was before. Um,
Yeah, if you think about
you know,
cortisol is doing to your body as well, like that cortisol, the stress hormone and the adrenaline and all the things that perhaps you've been working on. Like you say, you're building a business, you're on your own, you're hustling, like this masculine energy has come in and said, right, we need to just work and we need to push, and this is how a business is run, and we need to do all these things. And yeah, like there is a certain part, like we have to have a balance of the different energies, but that cortisol potentially is leading the show.
mm,
Your adrenals are probably like fighting, and it is, I guess, survival in the body.
yeah,
And maybe your estrogen is just taking a massive knock because there's other survival instincts that's going on to kind of try and keep your
yeah.
energy up, and you healthy.
And that's the thing. I think that's what's so important, like having these conversations is, like we said, the only people we really, well, could see that do this beforehand was men that were running businesses. We're all very quite new to it in consideration of how long it's been. But also, I think it's important for women to know that because we do have a cycle and we are different with our hormones at different stages of our cycle, which, we don't always honor. I know I didn't with exercise, for example. You can't exercise, you shouldn't exercise the same way you exercise the whole way through your cycle. And I think that's another thing with the cortisol. If you're training in the morning, these, women, and we're more sensitive at certain times in our cycle, and we're going to do runs or, even, extreme yoga sessions or whatever it is we're doing. Like, to not have that information it's just vital information, isn't it? And
Yeah,
these are other things that we need to, like you said, the lifestyle stuff around it needs to be educated as well in
100%.
schools. I mean, it's something we need to learn about in school, isn't it?
Yeah, like I've got girls, teenage girls, and my daughter plays football, and she's 17 and a half, and she was playing, and she was on a period, and it was quite a big game. And I said to her, like, you do know that you're going to be more drained, you're going to probably be more prone to injury. You need to think about this, make sure you've eaten, really well, lots of protein, lots of carbs, and make sure you're hydrated, really look after yourself. Take, what, I give her loads of supplements. She doesn't take any of them, but she was like, oh, mum, it's fine. It's fine. And I do think there is an element of, as we get older, we get more wisdom, and we have
Mm,
to learn sometimes the hard way. Like, I wish I could tell my girls everything they need to know right now, but I also know that they're just not ready to hear so much of it. Like, they just can't absorb it.
yeah.
Unfortunately, as the control freak that I am, I know that I have to kind of let them, unfortunately, as Mel Robbins says, let them sort of work it out themselves a little bit. But on the flip side, they should be learning, like girls should be learning, that there's certain times in their menstrual cycle where they're going to feel lower, they're going to feel more reactive, more exhausted, all of that. And actually, yesterday, something happened with my 13-year-old, and she was really, really emotional, and her RSD kicked in. And she just felt really sensitive about so many things, like socially and something else. And then she said, but actually, I know why I'm really emotional is because I'm going to get my period in 3 days. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, she's 13 and she knows because she's got a cycle tracker on her phone because I insisted that my girls get put cycle trackers on their phone. So the minute they start feeling wobbly, I say to them, well, when's your period due? And they'll always look and they go, oh yeah, it's coming in next week or it's coming in 5 days. I'm like, yes, okay. And I just want, if that's one thing that they do is track your cycle, so you at least you know what's normal, what's not normal, what to expect, how to help yourselves. Because I only learned that in my like early 40s to track my cycle.
Right.
Crazy.
And that is so, I'm so glad you said that, because that's what I was going to say, is like, it's the same with the teenage clients I work with. You could say about supplements, you could say about all this stuff, but they don't really take, the action straight away or want to. But the biggest thing is that how amazing when they're going through something like that, like your daughter, that that feeling that it's you. And I can see that shift in my clients when I go, oh, where are you in your cycle or whatever. That shift of not blaming themselves and going into an even deeper spiral, just knowing that, oh, okay, I'm probably a bit more reactive at the moment. And that is just a game changer in itself, just having that awareness, isn't it? Even if they don't do anything really with it, and just knowing is such
Yeah.
life-changing information, really.
Yeah. And like you say about, men just doing, like they've just been in this hustle culture and they just get up in the morning and they just do what they do and they don't have to even consider hormones. And we have been in this constructed reality created by this patriarchal system. And then we come in as women and we've got hormones and we've got cycles and we've got different hormonal seasons and chapters of our life and, pregnancy, postnatally, all the things that we're navigating, and we still expected just to keep showing up day after day and pushing and striving and growing and thriving and all these things that it's just not possible. And I literally, some days in my business, I just want to shut the whole thing down. And then other
Me too.
days I'm just like, well, everything's great. And I
At
know,
least twice a month.
yeah, and I know it's always times in my cycle. So when that voice comes in and says, this is crazy, like shut the whole thing down, just be a stay-at-home mum, or just like go and work in a florist or something, like, which is something I think would be really nice.
Yeah, I'm always like, just fly to Bali. Don't come back.
Yeah, these little fans. And you know what? You flying to Bali and doing what you want to do in Bali, that's not
Yeah.
a failure. That's just like, you know what? That could be an option for you, that could,
Yeah.
that's not like beyond the realms of possibility. And me saying, you know what, I've had enough of doing what I'm doing, in I decide that in a few years or in 5 years and I decide I want to do something slightly different. That's not a failure either. Like that's
No.
okay. And I think it's really important that we can say that you're a lawyer or you're a gardener or you're a teacher or you're a stay-at-home mum or whatever that is, you don't have to be that same person you are in 5 years' time. And there's
No.
nothing stopping you apart from that voice in your head and that fear of judgment from others to say, why can't I retrain? Why can't I move somewhere? Why can't I be a digital nomad? Like, why can't I?
I love
So
that. Why can't I? What a great question.
yeah, it is. It kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning. It's like just removing all that pressure, that self-imposed pressure that we put on ourselves, just to be a little bit kinder and a bit more curious and a bit more self-compassionate about who we want to become and who we want to be and how we want to feel. And without getting too existential, like, what's this all about? Like, what is our life actually? What are we actually here for? And you kind of, it's like that exercise where you imagine yourself at, in the city you are, in the country you are, and you keep pulling yourself back, and all of a sudden you just like look at yourself as this little tiny fleck of dust from,
Yeah.
the moon. And yes, we have lots of, what we do is like a ripple effect and consequences and everything. But when we're so entrenched in all our thoughts and our anxiety and our overthinking, like we think, actually, like, what's this all about? Like, we have to reclaim that perspective. And sadly, we only reclaim that perspective when we unfortunately hear really awful news, like tragic news, awful situations in the world. And then we go back to our day-to-day life of stress, anxiety, worry, overthinking. And it's often about we're sweating so much small stuff. Like, oh my God, the Instagram algorithms have changed again. And the amount of bloody headspace that takes up in my head of, why is this real? Not shit, da da da. And I just have to actively pull myself back and be like, the fact that your reel hasn't had many views is so minute and so pathetic that get a grip.
It means nothing. Like literally has no correlation to what you're doing. Yeah.
Is deciding whether that algorithm is working this week or not. And
exactly.
to do with what I've said in that reel, whether,
And also, like a lot of the women, I don't know, because I'm actually, I don't have it on my phone anymore. I've been really like off of it as much as I can. A lot of the women you probably work with and reach out to might be doing the same. I think a lot of people are coming off of these things as much as they were on them. So they probably don't even see it. Like, when we're in it, we're like, oh God, no one's like my thing. But maybe they're just like putting their boundaries in, like you've coached them on.
So if I'm honest.
Yeah, exactly. I really love this way of like saying about a different life as well, because I did an episode this week about quitting and embracing it, because I found that my clients, they're always getting hung up about the fact that they've quit something, and but they become so scared to start things because they're scared of quitting. And I'm like, guys, it's okay to quit on the things that just aren't you anymore, or just maybe it was just for now that they were serving you and you got something from it, and now it's time for something else. And I think with ADHD, really embracing that part of us, almost like, yeah, you don't want to quit on the things that mean something to you, but ultimately, if it's run its course, it's run its course, and that's okay,
Yeah.
to move on.
The word quit has just got so many negative connotations. It's just, we're just moving up that ladder. Those little of everything's a stepping stone towards something. Like even if you stayed in a job for 6 months, whatever you've gained in that 6 months, and it could have been like the worst 6 months of your life, like you will have learned something from that.
Definitely.
There will have been something that you will be able to reach for, in the next job opportunity or the next career move or whatever chapter. Like everything we do, no matter what, is always a learning experience. And I genuinely never think that anything's a failure now. Nothing is bad. Like there's no judgment. It just is. And you could have had 4 jobs in a year, and those 4 jobs in that year will have helped you grow and develop and learn something. And it is a mindset shift. It's like, okay, great, you've had 4 jobs in a year. What have you learned from them? Like, what can you bring to the next one? Where's it leading you to?
So true. I used to get so hung up about the jobs I had. I had 9 jobs in 10 years, I think it was. I counted the other day. And I was so ashamed of it. Now, doing this, I always used to think in the back of my head, do you know what? There's going to be a reason this is happening. And now we're in this business. It's been the best ever thing having all those jobs, because the ADHD stuff, I've actually had so many contacts that have reached out from these jobs asking, to come and support their businesses and stuff. So you never know in the moment, but you can't connect the dots always looking forward, isn't it what they say, but connect them looking back. So there will be something one day that makes sense. Right, because I've took up so much of your time, what advice would you say to ADHD women when it comes to hormones? Like, what would you say the protocol is? Is it when things feel a struggle, or is it something that, even parents, should they be doing straight away once they find out their teenager's got ADHD? What would you advice would you give?
I think definitely is awareness, is maybe like, cycle tracking, making sure that you're noticing what the struggles are, where the struggles are. And unfortunately, there's not one size fits all with any of this. It is very much kind of, okay, can you go to the GP and can you do a little bit of research? Can you print some stuff off? Can you maybe forward them some podcasts or a book or anything that they can support you with? I would definitely say right now, this self-advocacy is so important, is really understand and learn a bit more about your hormones and how they show up. And alongside that, sort of historically, where you think your neurodivergence has shown up as well. and what you've noticed throughout your hormonal history as well. And we are beginning to be able to connect dots, and there are research papers out there. Like, there is some evidence, and there's been a very recent paper talking about hormonal fluctuations in neurodivergent women. We know that there's much higher prevalence of PMDD in neurodivergent women, and that there is a lot of evidence growing in this space. So just do that research, print it out, or send them the links. And I would say is just start small. You know, if you think that HRT or hormonal treatment is not possible right now, what supplements can you take? You know, what food can you use to support yourself? Like, how can you prioritize your sleep? Where can you prioritize, you know, certain lifestyle changes, you know, blood sugar regulation, really ensuring that you are hydrating and nourishing yourself where you can. Like, these are little things that we have within our control. Definitely. So yeah, I would probably start small, try not to overwhelm yourself with too much. But if you do believe that you really are needing that hormonal support, I would go and try and start with your GP. Start there, because hopefully you're going to have a GP that is well read and is understanding of this landscape. And if not, maybe they'll send you to someone who is more understanding or more researched in that area. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. And I've got
That is
lots of
so helpful.
resources. I have got lots of resources actually on my website as well, like
Yes.
lots of workshops, lots of podcast conversations. I've got loads of free resources as well. So if people want to go to my website, which is ADHDwomenswellbeing.co.uk, they can learn more. And I've also got a whole hormone chapter in my book as well. I've really tried to cover as much as I can, as much as my publisher would let me, because I was on such a strict word count that I had to kind of give lots of like top line information. But I have sort of signposted people to different places. But my book has got a whole chapter on ADHD and hormones as well.
Yes. Yes. Because that was going to be our next question. Where do we get this, like, you know, the paper information and stuff like that? So your website is a great place for, you know, people want to start small and find something to bring. You've got such, you know, so much information there, which is amazing. So your book, when is it out? Where can people find it? Your amazing book. We can't wait.
Yeah. So the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Toolkit is out on July the 17th. So yeah, it's available to pre-order now, and if you pre-order it through my website, I'm going to send you some like freebies and some discounts.
Oh,
So
I'm going to do that.
I've got a link on my website, so you can order it there. And yeah, I'm really, really excited about people getting their hands on this book, because I really want it to be one of those books where you can dip in and out of. It can be on your bedside table. It can be in your bag. You can just have it there as your little go-to, as your sort of scaffolding or your support system. If you just need a bit of help, you know, I'm talking about RSD, anxiety, the nervous system, hormones. I talk about, you know, lessening our anxiety and finding more joy and creativity and fulfillment. It kind of, for me, it was just like everything that I needed to know, but also wanted to talk about. And it's so much of what I do in all my coaching, you know, sessions, but also in my workshops. So it's this blend of ADHD, self-development, spirituality, nervous system, hormonal health, nutritional advice, just packaged together, all very ADHD friendly and neuro-affirming. And I've written it hopefully to the version of me who needed it, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. And I know there's lots of versions of me out there, I hope. And that is what it is. It's not a memoir. It's not how dreadful ADHD is. And it's not this is all the challenges, but I can't help you kind of book. This is like, here's the situation, you know, warts and all. And here are the small ways and manageable ways, practical ways that you can help yourself if you are not able to pay for private help coaching.
Yeah.
You're not able to access the healthcare, you know, that some of us are very privileged to access. And you might be in a community where ADHD is not talked about, or you're in a family that, you know, don't believe that ADHD is a thing. So I've created, I hope, a toolkit for not just survival, but like really daily thriving. And I really hope that comes across in the book.
I love this. It seems like a proper coaching book, whereas we meet people where they're at and we take them to where they want to be instead of, dwelling on the past and stuff like that. I love this. And anything else you want to say?
I think people are probably bored of my voice by now.
No, they're definitely not. We can talk to you all day.
But yeah, no, that's it. And if people want to find me, they've got the podcast, the website. Like, if you literally just Google ADHD Women's Wellbeing, you should be able to find all the resources that I've got out there. And I've actually got a membership starting in September as well, like a really accessible, low cost membership where I want to bring the principles of the book into a membership. So many of the struggles that I know that a lot of my private coaching clients deal with, and really do it in a very non-overwhelming, non-pressured way of delivering content and some guidance that feels that you can, if you want to be part of it every month, you can. If you have busy months, you don't feel like you've got to catch up, in that fear of like, oh my God, I've got so much to catch up on. That's why I've made it sort of low cost and accessible. So it's not like you have to, oh my God, invest your whole, weekend to it. So I hope that's going to be live from September. There's a wait list on my website as well. You don't have to pay for anything, just put your name down. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And hopefully
I'm so happy
time off in the summer.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on the ADHD Untangled podcast. I hope that these episodes are inspiring you to step forward with confidence despite the struggles that you face with ADHD. If you want to find out more about ADHD coaching, retreats, trainings, then check out my Instagram, ADHD_Untangled, or my website, untangledco.com. Let's get untangled and show the world what we are made of.